Have you ever stumbled upon a secret so scandalous it threatened to unravel everything you thought you knew? In this tumultuous tale of hidden lies and shocking revelations, one woman claims to have miscarried a child she never lost, and a millionaire discovers his own wife is mysteriously raising that very same baby. Amid betrayals and hidden agendas, trust is tested and love is put on trial. This story brims with twists, heartbreak, and desperation, a real-life drama that will make you question how well you truly know the people around you. Buckle up. You're about to experience deceit like never before. Julian Levesque was, by all appearances, a man who lived the dream. From his penthouse suite overlooking the shimmering skyline of Manhattan to his wide-reaching philanthropic endeavors, Julian had built a sterling reputation. The son of a self-made real estate tycoon, he had multiplied the family fortune several times over with astute investments, turning him into a millionaire by the age of 30. Accomplished, handsome, and known for his impeccable taste, he was envied by many and idolized by more. On the surface, Julian's life was picture perfect. He was married to Serafina Serra to her friends, a graceful, warm-hearted woman from a modest upbringing in upstate New York. Their story was the stuff of modern fairy tales. Serra worked as an intern in the PR department of one of Julian's smaller enterprises. They crossed paths in a break room, sparks flew, and their whirlwind romance ended in marriage. Now they were approaching their third anniversary, and Sarah was pregnant with their first child. But behind every elegant facade lies the potential for hidden cracks. Despite the loving glances at galas, the dazzling pictures on social media, and the philanthropic events they hosted together, Julian and Sarah had a complicated dynamic. Their busy schedules often meant they slept in separate time zones, meeting at breakfast to exchange hurried kisses before darting off to chase the day's demands. Little did Julian know just how wide the chasm was growing between them, one that would soon swallow his world in scandal. It all began with hushed phone calls at odd hours, abrupt ends to conversations when Julian approached, and a sense that the vibe in the penthouse had changed. Sarah's usual beaming smile grew thinner, always accompanied by a nervous glance over her shoulder. She was 5 months pregnant, glowing physically, yet emotionally she seemed distant, as though a storm brewed just behind her eyes. One evening, after a particularly long day, Julian found Sarah in the living room, cradling a cell phone, her knuckles white as she gripped it. On the screen, he glimpsed a familiar number before she snatched it away. That same number, associated with an older friend Sarah had grown up with, seemed to appear over and over. It could have been harmless, yet something about the tense expression on her face told him otherwise. Julian's suspicion grew deeper when he realized Sarah was heading to her prenatal checkups without him. Each time he offered to clear his schedule, she insisted it was nothing major and that there's no need to fuss. Her breezy dismissals only fueled his worry. Was she hiding a health issue? Or did she simply want to keep her husband away from the doctor's office for some reason? The tension escalated one evening when Julian returned home unexpectedly early and heard Sarah whispering over the phone, "I promise I'll take care of everything, just don't come here unannounced again." Then silence. When he asked her who it was, she claimed it was her father, an aging man who supposedly needed financial help. But Sarah's father, James Gilmore, was a semi-retired mechanic living a comfortable life. He wouldn't need urgent, secret money from his daughter. Behind the elaborate curtains, the perfect photos, and the charitable image, a web of lies was being spun. Julian's unsuspecting heart was about to be thrust into a realm of deception he was ill-prepared for. And at the center of it all, a child who, unbeknownst to him, was not the blessing it appeared to be, or at least, not the only blessing in the mix. No one could have guessed that soon The very definition of family would be twisted into an unrecognizable shape, foreshadowing the turmoil to come. Julian's life took another bizarre turn when he found a piece of paper scribbled with the name Marina Morgan. It was tucked beneath a stack of junk mail on the kitchen countertop. He'd seen that name once before. Sarah had mentioned it in passing, describing her as an old acquaintance from her hometown. But it struck him as odd that Sarah would scribble the name on a slip of paper with such urgency, only to hide it beneath unrelated letters. Marina Morgan was an enigma in Sarah's past. She was once rumored to be a wild child who vanished from the small town of Stonebridge after stirring up trouble, only to reappear periodically with a new scandal in tow. By the time Sarah went to college, Marina was long gone from the local circles. No one seemed to know where she'd ended up or what her life looked like. Why was Marina's name surfacing now? And why did Sarah's voice quiver each time it arose? Julian debated confronting his wife, but a strange sense of dread held him back. It felt as if opening that door might unlock a flood of secrets that would forever shatter the world he knew. His uncertainty only grew after Sarah began receiving small packages with no return address. One arrived during a weekend morning. Julian noticed it was mailed from a different state, New Jersey, and postmarked with a tiny heart sticker on the corner. Carefully opening it when Sarah was out, he found a single item inside, a plush baby blanket embroidered with Baby G. Confusion set in. Sarah's last name before marrying him was Gilmore, so Baby G might imply Baby Gilmore. But was that from a friend or relative who couldn't recall Sarah's married name? Or was it from Marina Morgan, someone Sarah was unwilling to discuss? In the following days, Sarah acted restless and depressed, often locking herself in the guest bedroom to take calls. When Julian pressed her on who was calling, she'd muster a forced smile, claiming it was her father or maybe a cousin planning a surprise for the baby. Yet that tension in her voice never lifted. At night, Julian noticed that she'd wake up gasping, as if haunted by nightmares she refused to share. Life continued in a swirl of uncertainty. Julian's business obligations demanded his focus, forcing him to travel frequently. On a short trip to Los Angeles for a property development venture, he found himself unsettled, thinking obsessively about Sarah's mysterious behavior. Even in board meetings with wealthy investors, he was distracted. At dinner with his best friend, Edward Torres, a high-end realtor who had known Julian since college, he finally confessed his fears. Edward, a level-headed man, listened intently. He suggested that Sarah's anxiety might be related to the pregnancy itself. Women can get overwhelmed, Edward reasoned, and if there's some personal issue from her past creeping up, maybe she's trying to handle it quietly. Yet that explanation only half satisfied Julian. He recalled the phone calls, the hush, the packages, and the name Marina Morgan. He wondered if Sarah had done something before they married that she was ashamed to reveal now. Still, his devotion to her ran deep. If she was in trouble, he wanted to help. But Sarah's behavior suggested she was protecting someone else, or maybe protecting Julian himself from a truth too explosive to handle. Unbeknownst to him, that truth was creeping nearer. Marina Morgan was not just a phantom from Sarah's past. She was about to burst into their present life like a tornado, fueling drama, heartbreak, and revelations that would put all of Sarah's carefully constructed secrets at risk of unraveling. And for Julian, the greatest shock was yet to come. The day Marina Morgan appeared on their doorstep was a day that would forever live in Julian's memory. It was early afternoon. Sunlight poured through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse, reflecting against the polished marble floors. Julian had returned home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise Sarah with lunch. Instead, he found a striking woman standing just outside the elevator, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a well-worn duffel bag. Her eyes immediately scanned Julian from head to toe. She looked well-travelled and not at all frazzled, despite the suspiciously heavy bag. Without waiting for an invitation, she strode right into the foyer as though she owned the place. That's when Sarah appeared, face pale, heart pounding in her chest like a drum roll at the world's most disastrous circus performance. "Sarah, darling," Marina said with a sugar-sweet drawl. "You didn't tell me Julian would be here. We have so much to discuss." Julian's mind raced with 1,000 questions. The tension in Sarah's eyes was palpable. She tried to maintain composure, introducing Marina as an old friend from my hometown. But no matter how thoroughly Sarah attempted to spin it, the energy in the room betrayed her. Something grave lay between them, something far heavier than a casual reunion. Marina refused to let Sarah brush things under the rug. "You haven't told him yet, have you?" she asked pointedly, turning to Julian with a calculating smile. "I'm guessing you've noticed your wife's been a bit on edge?" Sarah's eyes widened in panic, and she waved Marina toward the guest bedroom, attempting to control the conversation away from Julian's earshot. But Marina, with an air of arrogance, didn't budge. "Julian's going to find out sooner or later," she declared. "Besides, I'm tired of sneaking around. Don't you think it's time for the truth?" Julian felt a cold pit forming in his stomach. Glancing at Sarah, he saw tears welling in her eyes. "What truth?" he asked, voice almost a whisper. Sarah looked pleadingly at Marina, but Marina just shook her head. "My baby never died," she said, her voice ice cold. "I lied about the miscarriage, and I want what's rightfully mine." A trembling confusion overtook Julian. He turned to his wife, searching for any semblance of clarity, but the sheer devastation in her eyes only confirmed there was more to this story. "Miscarriage? Whose baby?" "Sarah, what is she talking about?" Sarah took a trembling breath. "Julian, it's not what you think. Please trust me, there's a good reason." But Marina cut her off, venom evident in her tone. "Sarah's been taking care of my baby in secret. She claims it's hers, your child even. But it's not. The baby she's carrying is mine." Julian's brain locked up, paralyzed by the tsunami of accusations. He wanted to believe it was some twisted joke. Why would Sarah raise someone else's baby? And how would that even work if Sarah was physically pregnant? "I don't understand," he stammered, looking at Sarah, noticing her trembling hands pressed protectively against her belly. Marina's lips curled into a smirk. "Trust me, Julian, there's a lot you don't understand," she said, eyeing him with a vengeful glint. "But that's why I'm here, to make sure Sarah doesn't steal my child." The atmosphere was stifling, the air thick with unspoken rage and fear. In that moment, Julian realized he was standing on the edge of an abyss, about to be plunged into revelations that defied logic. He reached for Sarah's hand, only to feel her pull away. The distance between them was suddenly too vast, and the secrets that hovered in the air were too enormous to comprehend. For the first time in his adult life, Julian Levesque felt powerless. His marriage, his upcoming fatherhood, everything he believed was anchoring him threatened to collapse under the weight of Marina Morgan's shocking presence. The drama had begun, and no one in that penthouse would ever be the same again. Unable to process Marina's words, Julian demanded answers. Sarah, shaking and teary-eyed, asked Marina to leave them alone for just a moment so she could explain. Grudgingly, Marina agreed, setting down her heavy duffel bag in the corner and stepping out onto the penthouse balcony. Her eyes lingered on Julian in a way that was both pitying and triumphant, as if savoring the chaos she'd unleashed. Sarah took Julian's hand and guided him into the master bedroom, shutting the door gently behind them. Her voice trembled. "Julian, I'm so sorry. Please, just listen to me for a moment." Julian tried to quell the storm inside him, but couldn't ignore the panic in his wife's eyes. "What's going on, Sarah? You need to tell me right now. Are you carrying someone else's baby? Are you lying to me? I need the truth. Taking a shaky breath, Sarah began her story. "Remember when I told you about my hometown friend Marina? She'd gotten pregnant unexpectedly last year. The father left her, and she was desperate. She reached out to me, asked me for help. She had no money, no support, nothing. I agreed to help her financially. At first, it was just for prenatal care. Then she talked about adoption. She was going to put the baby up for adoption after birth because she couldn't handle raising a child alone." Julian listened, confusion overwhelming him. "But how does that have anything to do with you being pregnant?" Sarah's gaze fell to the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. Marina didn't want people to know she was pregnant. She was afraid the baby's father might come after her, or that her family would disown her. So we hatched this plan. I would pretend to be pregnant in her place, so that when the baby was born, we could claim it was mine. We thought it was a safe way to give the baby a good home. We could raise the child as our own. Julian and Marina would be free from all the complications." Julian's heart hammered. You wanted to adopt Marina's baby and pass it off as ours. Sarah, that's insane. Why not just do a legal adoption? Why all the secrecy? Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. Marina panicked. She was paranoid that the father might track her if we did anything official. And I was so eager to be a mother. After my first miscarriage last year, Julian felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He remembered that miscarriage. Sarah had wept for nights on end. Could her trauma have driven her to this desperate scheme? And then, Sarah continued, after all the planning, Marina told me she lost the baby. But apparently, that was a lie. She never miscarried. She took the money I was giving her, but hid the fact that she was still pregnant. I only found out the truth a few weeks ago. She blackmailed me, threatening to expose everything if I didn't keep supporting her. I was terrified you'd find out and leave me. Julian closed his eyes, trying to steady himself. The pieces were maddening. If Marina lied about a miscarriage, then what about you? Your belly is showing. Are you actually pregnant? Or? Sarah hesitated, her eyes brimming with anguish. "I don't know," she whispered, pressing a hand against her round abdomen. "At first, I thought I was faking, but then I started feeling things, kicking. The doctor confirmed I really am pregnant. It was a miracle. Just when I thought I couldn't carry a baby to term, it happened. But with Marina in the picture, everything has gotten so messed up. She's claiming that the child inside me is somehow hers, or she wants to sabotage my pregnancy out of jealousy. I'm not even sure what she wants." The bedroom was silent, save for Sarah's muffled sobs. Julian looked at his wife's trembling form, uncertain whether to be furious or heartbroken. The situation was more convoluted than any nightmare he could have conjured. A swirl of betrayal and pity warred within him, pity for a woman so desperate to be a mother that she'd tangle herself in another's secret, and betrayal that she'd risk his trust in the process. Outside, Marina leaned against the balcony railing, her eyes fixed on the cityscape. She was waiting like a storm on the horizon, ready to unleash the next wave of drama. Little did Julian know, her intentions ran deeper than he could possibly imagine. Despite Julian's protests and Sarah's pleas for privacy, Marina refused to leave. She claimed she had nowhere else to go, and if they kicked her out, she'd be forced to expose their fraudulent arrangement to the entire world. A million thoughts raced through Julian's mind. Yes, he had power, money, and resources. But if Marina truly spread rumors that Julian's wife was orchestrating some elaborate pregnancy scheme, his public image and potentially his entire business empire could suffer irreparable damage. He decided to keep his enemy close and grudgingly allowed Marina to stay for a few days while they figured out a plan. Marina made herself comfortable in the penthouse's luxurious guest suite. She draped her clothes across the armchairs and demanded room service from the kitchen staff like she was a VIP. Each morning, she'd saunter into the living area, greeting Julian with an unsettlingly familiar smile that hinted she enjoyed his discomfort. The once harmonious atmosphere of the penthouse turned claustrophobic, with tension crackling between Sarah, Julian, and their unwelcome houseguest. At night, Julian's mind raced with questions. Was Sarah truly carrying his child, or had Marina somehow coerced her into a surrogacy-like situation? Every scenario felt more surreal than the next. Sarah, for her part, seemed emotionally drained, trying simultaneously to placate Marina and reassure Julian that their marriage was still intact. Yet an invisible wall separated them in bed. Fear, shame, and anger lingered in the silence. What sent Julian's stress skyrocketing further were subtle comments Marina dropped daily. "I remember how Sarah used to pray for a child," she'd say during breakfast, glancing slyly at Julian. "I guess prayers do come true, one way or another." Or, "You two really are lucky to have so much space. Imagine if I wanted to bring my baby here full-time." She'd grin at Sarah, who'd immediately tense up. It was a psychological chess game, and Marina seemed to be winning. One afternoon, as Julian worked in his study overlooking the skyline, he heard raised voices in the living room. Rushing out, he found Marina waving a newspaper in Sarah's face. The headline read, "Millionaire philanthropist Julian Levesque to sponsor new women's clinic." It was an interview discussing Julian's latest charitable project. Marina's laughter rang out, sharp and cruel. "Sponsoring a women's clinic, are we? That's rich, considering your wife's secret." Sarah's face turned crimson with humiliation. Julian confronted Marina. "How dare you throw that in her face? This clinic is for women who genuinely need help." The tension boiled over, and the argument escalated until Sarah, tears streaming, stumbled away to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. In the tense aftermath, Julian glared at Marina. "Why are you really here? If you just wanted money, we could have handled it quietly." Marina shrugged, leaning against the sofa. "Maybe I'm here to collect. Maybe I'm here because I don't trust Sarah to raise my child after everything she's done. Or maybe," she paused, a cunning glint in her eyes, "I just like seeing how far people will go to cover up their dirty secrets." The darkest part of Julian's mind began to suspect that Marina's intentions might be more malicious than they appeared. Was she planning to ruin his marriage on purpose? Exploit him for money? Seek revenge on Sarah for some hidden slight? The lines of loyalty, truth, and deception blurred so thoroughly that he didn't know whom to trust. That night, as Julian tried to sleep, he listened to Sarah's muffled sobs and felt the baby kicking against her belly. The sensation stirred something protective in him. No matter the web of deception, a life was growing inside his wife. He silently vowed to unearth the truth, to protect Sarah, even if part of him felt betrayed. He had to figure out a way to untangle the complicated threads that bound Sarah and Marina together before their entire world imploded. Digging deeper into the fiasco, Julian decided it was time to learn more about Marina's history. He hired a private investigator, Martin Caldwell, a discreet professional who had helped Julian's company vet potential business partners in the past. If anyone could gather the truth about Marina, it was Martin. Days passed in a tense routine. Sarah continued her prenatal appointments, now with Julian's insistence that he accompany her. Each visit confirmed that Sarah's pregnancy was on track, the baby healthy. Yet Sarah would flinch at each scan, as though terrified the entire charade might be exposed any second. Julian reassured her they needed to know the truth for their own peace of mind. Meanwhile, Marina prowled around the penthouse like a caged predator. She'd come and go at odd hours, never revealing where she'd been. More worrisome was her fascination with Julian's lavish lifestyle. She'd linger by the garage, eyeing his cars. She'd ask intrusive questions about his net worth, his shares in various companies, and any inheritance waiting in the wings. Each question sent a chill down Julian's spine, making him wonder if greed or blackmail was driving her. One evening, the private investigator called, voice low and urgent. Marina Morgan has a record, Martin revealed. Several petty theft charges, a restraining order from a previous ex-boyfriend, and a history of lying about pregnancies. She's taken child support from multiple men, claiming the child is theirs, then disappearing once payments ceased. Julian's blood ran cold. She's a con artist? Seems likely, Martin replied. She's used pregnancy scams to bilk men out of money. The father in her small town? She claimed he abandoned her, but local records show he was actually paying child support until a paternity test proved otherwise. The baby she claimed was his turned out not to exist, at least, not in that scenario. Closing his eyes, Julian fought a wave of nausea. Everything pointed to the possibility that Marina was out to exploit them. But how did she rope Sarah into this web? Before he could gather his thoughts, Martin dropped another bombshell. I found something else. She's rumored to have a hidden child. A daughter, about a year old, living with a relative in Pennsylvania, but it's unconfirmed she might have more children that she's used as pawns. By the time Julian hung up, he was shaking with a mix of anger and disgust. He needed to confront Sarah with this information unless she was already aware. But how to bring it up without causing more chaos, with Marina slithering about? Julian had to be strategic, careful. The next morning, Julian cornered Sarah after Marina left the penthouse. His voice trembled with restrained fury. How much do you really know about Marina? Did you know she's done this before? He detailed the con artist angle, the child support scams, the rumors of hidden children. Sarah's face turned ashen. No. I had no idea, she whispered. Sarah's shock seemed genuine. She sank into a chair, cradling her pregnant belly. Julian, I'm so sorry. I believed her story about being abandoned. I never thought she might be lying about the miscarriage, too. She convinced me to pretend I was pregnant so we could pass the baby off as ours. But in reality, she wanted to keep me on a leash, knowing I'd pay her anything to keep it quiet. Julian exhaled sharply, the weight of revelation crushing him. We have to end this now, he said firmly. I can't let her keep threatening our marriage, extorting us. We'll let the authorities handle it if we must, but I won't let her exploit you or this baby anymore. But Sarah seemed hesitant. She'll try to destroy us, Julian. The scandal alone could ruin your career and reputation, and I'm afraid if we push her too far, she'll harm me or the baby. She's unpredictable. He took Sarah's hand, a fierce determination in his eyes. I don't care about my reputation if it means protecting you and our child. We have resources, lawyers, and if she tries anything, we can fight back. But I need you to be honest with me, no more secrets. She nodded, tears spilling. I promise, no more secrets. Just as they embraced, the front door banged shut. Marina was home. She called out, her tone saccharine yet tinged with menace. Honey, I'm back. Goosebumps prickled Julian's skin. He and Sarah exchanged a look of grim understanding. The time for confrontation was near, but with a manipulator like Marina, one never knew when the next twist would rear its head. Several nights later, tension reached a crescendo. Julian, emboldened by the information from Martin, decided to confront Marina directly. Sarah stood behind him, pale-faced but resolved. They found Marina in the living room, lying on the couch and flipping through a high-end fashion magazine she had no intention of buying. She didn't even flinch when they walked in. She almost seemed to savor their anger. Marina, Julian began, voice steeled, we know about your past. The scams, the lies, the false pregnancies. It's over. I want you out of our home and out of our lives tonight. Marina clicked her tongue in mock disappointment, glancing at Sarah. You told him everything, didn't you? Sk, sk. After all the trouble I took to keep your secrets. My secrets. Sarah stepped forward, trembling but defiant. I've told Julian the truth. There's nothing you can threaten me with anymore. A slow smile spread across Marina's face. Is that so? Because if memory serves, you still faked a pregnancy for months, actively deceiving your husband, your friends, your entire social circle. And I have all the proof texts, emails, even voice recordings, where you practically beg me not to reveal the truth. Now, what do you think your philanthropic boards will say if that goes public, Julian? Julian's fists tightened at his sides. You can't blackmail us with that. The moment you try, we'll press charges for extortion and fraud. You'll never see a dime of my money. Oh, but I think I can, Marina purred. She reached into her duffel bag, pulling out a thick envelope. She fanned its contents, revealing photographs that showed Sarah handing Marina wads of cash, along with copies of Sarah's emails. These aren't just some half-baked rumors. I have hard evidence that your wife was part of a sham, and if you don't believe it's enough to ruin you, we can test that theory. Sarah inhaled sharply, tears threatening once again. Marina, please, don't please me, Marina snapped. You sold your soul when you agreed to help me lie about the baby. And you tried to cheat me when I told you I'd lost the child. Did you ever stop to think how that might make me feel, Sarah? A single mother with no one to turn to. Stop playing the victim, Julian interjected, fury coursing through him. You manipulated Sarah. You took advantage of her grief over her miscarriage. Now you want to keep using that to milk us. I won't stand for it. Marina rose from the couch, stepping closer until she was inches from Julian's face. Here's my offer. You pay me $500,000 in cash or offshore deposit, and I'll disappear. No press, no scandal, no photos. I'll stay away for good. Or you try to fight me and I blow this story wide open. Think how your investors, your donors, your precious high society friends will react to such a scandal. The atmosphere was electric, a tense standoff with hearts pounding. Sarah tightened her grip on Julian's arm. Don't do it, she whispered, voice quavering. She'll just come back for more. She always comes back for more. Marina smiled darkly. Oh, so you did learn something about me after all. Guess you do your homework. Her gaze flicked between them. So what's it going to be? Pay up or get ruined? The ultimatum hung in the air, as thick and suffocating as smoke in a burning building. Julian thought of all he had built: his businesses, philanthropic endeavors, the career his father had entrusted him to further. He pictured the baby growing in Sarah's womb, an innocent life soon to arrive in a maelstrom of lies and betrayal. One wrong decision could end everything. But sometimes it's only when cornered that a person finds the courage to fight back. Julian felt that spark ignite in him. Marina might have believed she held every card, but she had underestimated the depths of love and resilience, two forces that can topple even the most cunning manipulator. The next move was his. In the face of Marina's ultimatum, Julian devised a strategy. He contacted his legal team and his private investigator, Martin Caldwell, assembling a small war council. They decided to stage a setup that would catch Marina in the act of extortion, ensuring undeniable evidence that could protect Julian and Sarah in court if necessary. Quietly, Julian arranged for $500,000 in marked bills, along with a hidden camera rig in the penthouse's study. Martin would be stationed in a nearby hotel room, waiting for the signal to notify law enforcement. Sarah, though terrified, agreed to play her part. She'd call Marina into the study under the pretext that Julian was caving in, handing over the money. The night of the plan felt surreal. The penthouse lights were low. The city glittered outside like a million watchful eyes. Sarah's nerves were frayed. She paced in their bedroom, gathering the courage to lure Marina into the study without betraying the subterfuge. Julian comforted her with a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll end this tonight," he vowed. "No more blackmail, no more lies." When the clock struck midnight, Sarah walked into the living room where Marina lounged, sipping a glass of expensive wine she had helped herself to. "Julian wants to settle," Sarah said softly, her face carefully schooled into an expression of defeat. "We have your money in the study." Marina's eyes glinted with greedy satisfaction. She set the wine down, brushing imaginary dust off her sleeves as she rose. "It's about time. Let's get this over with." Inside the study, Julian stood beside a large oak desk where a sleek briefcase rested. His expression was stony. Marina sauntered in, shutting the door behind her. "I see you took my advice," she teased, glancing at the briefcase. "I'm actually impressed. I didn't think you'd have the nerve to do it." Julian's voice came out low and clipped. "We want you gone, Marina. No more contact, no more threats, no more blackmail." She lifted the briefcase, opened it, and her eyes widened slightly at the neat stacks of bills. "This is very generous." "Should I count it?" Julian stiffened. "You'll find it's all there. Now take it and go." A smug grin spread across Marina's face. She snapped the briefcase shut. "Oh, I'll leave. But I need to make sure there aren't any nasty surprises. Maybe you have the cops waiting downstairs, or something clever like that." She took a step closer to Julian, a sultry edge creeping into her tone. "You wouldn't cross me again, would you? Because if I sense the slightest betrayal, I promise I'll sing like a canary to every tabloid in New York." Julian forced himself to maintain a steely composure. "Take the money, Marina. We're done here." Marina paused, suspicious. She studied his face, then Sarah's. At that moment, the study door burst open. It was Martin Caldwell, accompanied by two uniformed officers. The color drained from Marina's face as the officers stepped forward, badges gleaming. "New York Police Department," one said firmly. "Marina Morgan, we have evidence of attempted extortion and fraud." Put down the briefcase. For a brief second, Marina stood frozen, rage and panic twisting her features. Then she lunged, trying to shove Sarah aside and make a break for the door. But the police were faster, grabbing her arms and wrestling her to the ground. The briefcase spilled open, bills scattering like autumn leaves. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears streaming. Julian stood there, heart hammering, as Marina shouted curses and threats. Within moments, she was cuffed and dragged to her feet, still spitting fury. "I'll destroy you!" she screamed. "All of you! This isn't over." The police read her rights, leading her out of the penthouse. As the door slammed shut behind them, a deafening silence took hold. Julian exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Sarah collapsed into his arms, sobbing. The baby kicked, a small sign of life amidst the aftermath of chaos. For now, it seemed the devil had been dealt with. But the story wasn't over. Secrets had a way of reverberating. Julian and Sarah would soon find that Marina's venomous influence didn't end with an arrest. There were deeper implications about Sarah's past choices, Julian's public persona, and the unborn child whose identity had become entangled in a labyrinth of lies. The final chapter of their tribulation was yet to unfold. The arrest made headlines, though thankfully Marina's more salacious accusations didn't flood the tabloids yet. Julian's legal team secured an injunction to prevent the publication of unverified claims. The police charged Marina with extortion, but she posted bail swiftly. Though forced to surrender her passport, she was free to walk the streets, a vengeful spirit looming in the city's shadows. The tension within Julian and Sarah's marriage was still palpable. Sarah found it difficult to sleep, plagued by nightmares where Marina would reappear, ripping her unborn child away. Julian tried to console her, but the trust between them had been rattled by too many secrets. They tiptoed around each other, discussing the baby's name and nursery plans with forced smiles. One day, Sarah's obstetrician, Dr. Vivienne Chan, suggested an ultrasound with more detailed testing. Given the emotional stress Sarah had endured, the doctor wanted to make sure everything with the pregnancy was normal. Julian, determined to be there for Sarah, cleared his schedule to attend. In the dimly lit ultrasound room, Sarah lay on the table, belly exposed as Dr. Chan passed the wand over her skin. The black and white shapes on the monitor flickered, revealing a clear outline of a tiny human form. Julian inhaled sharply at the sight of the baby's beating heart. It was a beautiful moment, but a shadow of anxiety clung to them both. Then Dr. Chan hesitated, peering at the screen. "It's nothing to worry about, but I need to run a quick test," she said, her tone careful. She took a blood sample from Sarah, explaining it was a standard screening procedure. A few days later, the results came back. Dr. Chan called them into her office, wearing a puzzled expression. She explained that the fetal DNA sample raised an unexpected question. Julian's mind raced with dread. Had Sarah's ordeal somehow impacted the baby? Dr. Chan cleared her throat. The test indicates a discrepancy in paternity markers. In simpler terms, the baby's genetic profile suggests it's not fully biologically related to Julian. Sarah gasped, tears flooding her eyes. The look on Julian's face was heartbreak incarnate. "It's possible that the earlier plan where you pretended to be pregnant somehow included an embryo from someone else," Dr. Chan said gently, "or there could be a lab error. But we should confirm with a more comprehensive paternity test." Julian felt the blood drain from his face. The horrific suspicion that Sarah might have carried out a secret surrogacy plan came roaring back, or, more insidiously, that Sarah had been unfaithful. He wanted to trust her, but the weight of everything they'd experienced made it agonizingly difficult. Devastated, Sarah sobbed in the car on their way home. "I never cheated on you," she cried. "I swear it. It has to be some mistake. I never implanted someone else's embryo. You have to believe me, Julian." He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "We'll do a proper test, an amniocentesis, whatever it takes. I need to know the truth." Over the next few days, the tension in the penthouse grew suffocating. Julian tried to maintain his composure, telling himself that a lab error was entirely possible. But doubts gnawed at him. Marina's manipulative hold over their lives felt far from over. Could she have somehow orchestrated this? Or was the truth more mundane? Sarah had lied again. Even as they scheduled the paternity test, Sarah insisted on her fidelity. "I love you, Julian. I've made mistakes, but I've never slept with another man. Please believe me." He nodded numbly, not trusting his voice to remain steady. Part of him wanted to hold her tight, protect her from all harm. The other part, scarred by betrayal, worried that once again he was being duped. With the test looming, both he and Sarah teetered on the edge of an emotional precipice. Unbeknownst to them, the final, most shocking twist lurked just around the corner. The day of the amniocentesis arrived. Sarah was a bundle of nerves, while Julian stood by her side, silent but resolute. The procedure was delicate, an ultrasound guiding a needle to collect amniotic fluid for genetic testing. Once complete, they were told the results would take a week. It felt like the longest week of their lives. During that agonizing wait, Marina struck again. A sensational online tabloid leaked a story hinting that a millionaire's wife was faking a pregnancy to defraud him. Though no names were mentioned, the details were suspiciously close to Julian and Sarah's situation. The phone at the penthouse buzzed relentlessly, with calls from reporters fishing for comment. Julian's PR team scrambled to perform damage control, and the emotional toll on Sarah became almost unbearable. Finally, the test results came in. Dr. Chan requested they visit her office immediately. Waiting inside her consultation room, Julian clenched Sarah's hand until his fingers tingled with numbness. Dr. Chan's grave expression as she entered was anything but comforting. She placed the file gently on her desk, inhaled deeply and began. "I double-checked the data to be sure," she said softly. "There's no mistake this time. The fetus does not share Julian's DNA. However, it's also clear that it is not genetically related to Marina Morgan. The child's DNA suggests half is Sarah's, but the paternal markers are not matching Julian or any of the typical profiles we see in standard reference labs." Sarah's eyes grew wide, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I never slept with anyone else. How can this be?" Julian's shock gave way to heartbreak and, beyond it, a terrifying suspicion. Could there have been some form of medical tampering? Perhaps someone swapped embryos in a lab? He looked at Dr. Chan. "Is there any chance this was an IVF mix-up?" Dr. Chan shook her head. "Not unless Sarah underwent IVF procedures without your knowledge. But she showed no signs of that, and her records don't indicate any such treatment." Then, a memory struck Sarah like lightning. She recalled a suspicious moment months ago when she had a routine checkup with a different clinic before. Dr. Chan began overseeing her pregnancy. There had been confusion about the identity of the patient. A nurse had asked her to confirm her name twice, scanning a barcode on a sample that wasn't hers. At the time, Sarah thought it was just a small clerical error. "I think someone switched my sample," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Or maybe substituted an embryo. God, this is insane." Could Marina have orchestrated something that day? Julian's face darkened. "We have to investigate." If Marina was capable of extortion and conning multiple men, maybe she bribed someone at that clinic. Or it could be someone entirely different who had reason to sabotage us. But what reason? An eerie silence fell. Sarah clenched the file in her shaking hands, eyes full of haunted confusion. She loved this child growing inside her, yet the father was a complete mystery, and Julian, his entire soul, felt like it was collapsing in on itself, torn between grief and fury. A week later, an unsettling piece of the puzzle slid into place. Martin Caldwell called with urgent news. A nurse at the original clinic had been questioned about a possible sample mix-up. She confessed she'd been threatened and paid by an unknown woman to swap Sarah's test results with another patient's IVF materials. That unknown woman matched the description of Marina Morgan. All signs point to Marina orchestrating a forced surrogacy scenario, Martin explained. If the father was the IVF clinic's other male patient, then it means the baby isn't Julian's, but Sarah is the one carrying the embryo. The revelation was mind-numbing. Marina's final revenge, it seemed, was to ensure that Sarah bore a child that neither she nor Julian had intended biologically fathered by a stranger. The full extent of Marina's scheme might never be known, but it reeked of a twisted desire to destroy their relationship from the inside out. In the end, Julian refused to abandon Sarah. The child was innocent, and despite the agony of betrayal, he saw that Sarah was also a victim. They pressed charges against Marina for conspiracy and medical fraud. As the legal wheels turned, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Though she was not Julian's by blood, he was there in the delivery room, cradling the infant. The moment she came into the world, tears flowed as Sarah saw the unconditional love in his eyes. Despite everything, their relationship would never quite be the same. Trust had been shattered, and they needed couples therapy and a lot of soul searching to rebuild any semblance of stability. But in that hospital room, the three of them, Julian, Sarah, and the baby, formed a fragile new bond. It was a testament that, even amid the darkest betrayals, love could still bloom, albeit with scars. Marina, charged and wanted for questioning, vanished shortly after posting bail. Rumors placed her in Europe, while some claimed she'd returned to that small town to hide. Whatever her fate, the legacy of her deception would forever mark Julian and Sarah's lives. Yet as they looked down at the baby, softly cooing in her hospital bassinet, they vowed that her future would be unmarred by the sins of the past. They'd confront the public scandal, handle the fallout of their reputations, and sort out the baby's legal identity. But for one tender moment, father, mother, and child stayed quietly together, a poignant illustration of the resilience born from heartbreak. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster of lies, heartbreak, and redemption. In the end, Julian and Sarah faced the unimaginable, a shocking conspiracy that disrupted their marriage and lives. Marina's deception threatened to destroy them, but their unbreakable resolve gave them the strength to fight back, unearthing a twisted scheme so audacious it was almost unimaginable. Through it all, they chose love over despair and family over betrayal, welcoming an innocent child into their world despite her tumultuous beginnings. If this gripping saga kept you on the edge of your seat, please consider liking this video, sharing it with friends who love high-stakes drama, and subscribing to our channel for more enthralling stories. Your support fuels our passion for bringing you tales that captivate your heart and spark your imagination. Stay tuned for more real-life drama novels just like this.